Hello, fermented folks. Welcome back to our little show where we talk about fiction, genre fiction to be specifically, through the lens of debate, some alcoholic beverages, and always good conversation with our amazing guests. Today on the show, we have author Richard Thomas, who's joining us to debate a movie that Clayton and I actually went to together in theaters. I can't tell you what I actually thought about it yet, but Longlegs, we watched it over the summer while we were in the same location, which doesn't happen all the time. And we definitely had some strong thoughts, but that all comes later. First, we're going to do some quick updates from our hosts, and then Richard, if we'll have you introduce yourself once we get through these updates from the people are more familiar with. I am Travis from Mullum. I don't have a big update this week other than this is going to be a bit of a joke. Hopefully get a laugh out of Clayton. My dog went to the vet again.
Yeah, that's not really an update. That's just
that's
every
just
day.
daily life. I have a corgi. She's actually right behind me here. You might hear a bark every once in a while. She likes to eat literally everything, and we've tried as much as we can to stop that from happening, but she is a vacuum, and she ate some pieces of tinfoil the other day, and so had to be rushed to get those out of her stomach. She's doing fine now, back to her normal demon ways. That's my update. My dog just keeps being a vacuum. Jeremy,
what's
going on in your life?
You know, I'm ever so slightly miffed and upset because of something that happened. Well, but I'm also really happy because of the thing that happened.
Okay.
So what happened was I got this keyboard. I don't know how well people can see it, but it is Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy themed.
Nice.
And it arrived one business day after we recorded for Life, the Universe, and Everything.
Oh, man.
Luckily, my niece was born, so I had an update last week.
Yeah, no kidding.
So, she really pulled it together for us. But yeah, I'm miffed and also happy.
Good.
Yes.
Clayton, are you also miffed or happy or both?
Yeah, a little bit. I was humored today. So I was listening to Spotify, and I was listening to an Eminem playlist, and with me it mixes in a lot of like humorous rap, like Epic Rap Battles of History and Dan Bull and shit like that. One of our songs came up in the playlist, and I sort of had forgotten that it existed. But I gotta say, On and On, Jeremy, that song, kind of a banger. I was like, hey, that's pretty sweet, dude. So I forgot that Jeremy and I had released a rap album, and today I was reminded. I'm not going to tell either anyone the name of our band or the name of the album, but Jeremy and I do have a rap album, and if you can find it, good on you. I'll send you some merch. I'll send you books. I'll send you free books if you happen to be able to find me and Jeremy's rap duo and our debut / only album. Yeah, that's my update. I had a fun reminder.
Album has not come out yet. Development hell, I tell you what.
Or to add to the Easter egg hunt, I don't have any social media anymore. I'm very anti-social media. But if you can find me in person, where I live, I will tell you about Clayton's rap album.
It does exist, I promise. If you can find it, I really will send you a t-shirt and a free book, maybe even 2 free books and a free custom bookmark. Just hit me in the DMs. Let me know if you find it.
Yeah,
good luck out there, kids.
You can do it. We believe in you.
Speaking of books and amazing things to be given away or bought or purchased or whatever, we have Richard Thomas on the show. Richard Thomas, can you tell our audience a little bit about yourself and the work that you do?
Thanks, guys. Thrilled to be here. I'm a writer, editor, teacher, and past publisher. I'm known for horror, but I write fantasy, sci-fi, horror, neo-noir, new weird, wide range of stuff. I've been writing about 15 years. 4 novels, 4 short story collections, about 180 stories published. I've been a finalist for the Bram Stoker Award twice, the Shirley Jackson Award, and a Thriller Award. I live in the suburbs of Chicago, and mostly I spend my time writing and teaching these days. I guess my last thing to come out, well, I had a collection out last year, Spontaneous Human Combustion, that was a finalist for the Bram Stoker Award, so that was really exciting. That's as close as I've ever gotten. And I have my new novel, Incarnate, that came out in September. It's an Arctic horror sin eater book, kind of a mix of The Thing and The Terror meets, for you literary people like John Langan's The Fisherman, Stephen Graham Jones, The Only Good Indians, and a bit of Lois Lowry's The Giver. So it's an interesting mix. Yeah, so that's what I'm doing right now. And then my plans for next year kind of do more of the same. I just heard from my editor at Podium, and she just came back from the Frankfurt Book Fair, where she seems to have submitted my novel to, I think, 8 different publishers and countries. So I'm hoping to have some foreign sales. And then we're hoping to get my backlist into print, that my last 2 books, Disintegration and Breaker, which are kind of neo-noir, transgressive realism, they're out of print. And so based upon the love we've gotten for this book, and I got my first ever review in the New York Times. That's never happened. And so that's
hell yeah.
Yeah. And so based upon all that stuff and their sales team loving the book, that, fingers crossed we can get those 2 into print. That would mean a lot to me, because at the time I'd signed with a Penguin Random House imprint called Alibi, and ebooks were really big. And I thought, well, I'd rather blow out ebook sales than have it in print. And they did a good job with it. Not quite as well as I would have liked, but in the end, I never got it into print. So I would love to get those 2 books into print. So that's kind of where I am right now.
Incarnate is badass. Go read it.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
What an amazing career. I love the Giver link.
Yeah.
I haven't heard that link before with horror. I really am very, very intrigued.
Yeah, there was like a kind of a rural kindness to the book. Although it's Arctic horror, you think The Thing, you think brutality, dangerous weather, weird creatures, that kind of stuff. But there's also kind of a native community there, Inuit community, kind of Barrow, Alaska, where there's like 60, 80 days of darkness. So there was a lot of kind of folk horror and rural aspects that went along with it. And so that was kind of the Giver angle that I tried to fold into it. But I wanted to, writing the book the last couple of years, kind of pre-COVID, during COVID, I just couldn't write stuff that was super bleak. And so I had to write a bit more hope punk. Like I would say my collection had a lot of hope in it. Not that there wasn't horror, not that the horror didn't sometimes win, but I just couldn't have everything be like Requiem for a Dream, down, 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 splat, stay down. Everybody loses, right? Yeah. So that's where the Giver comes in, is just trying to have a little bit of hope and a little bit of lightness to offset the dark, I guess.
Love it. Yeah. All right.
Thanks, man.
Well, we will definitely talk more about that. I have many thoughts that I'll try and save for after.
Sure.
But forced entrollment is the main part of our show. The 10 minutes where these two, Clavermole, Richard Thomas, duke it out, debate style, over a piece of media. Now, for those of you who are new to our show, we roll one of these, and sorry if you're just listening on Spotify, we roll one of these nice, shiny little dice rocks, D20s, and whoever rolls highest has to defend the book or movie, regardless of what they actually believe. Whoever rolls lowest is on the attack, regardless of what they actually believe. Really helps you work out those brain muscles. See if you can think of some good criticisms or good praises for something you either like or dislike. And we will be starting just a minute. I have my timer. Are you two ready as we roll?
Ready to roll.
A little scared. Does that make me? Am I the old fighter? Am I Tyson and you're Paul?
I don't love that comparison, but I do have a beard. I am younger.
I could run out of breath at any time.
All right. All right, Richard. All right. I rolled decent for you. I didn't roll amazing, but I rolled good.
Okay.
What'd you get, Clay?
13.
I got a 14.
Dang it!
Right.
Oh my goodness!
Nice.
I got a track record for rolling well for other
streak.
people. For other people, I roll terribly when it's myself. Okay, so Richard, debate's going to start with you. It always goes with the positive review first.
Cool.
And once again, this is free form. You don't have to. There's no one going to be interrupting you and saying your 2 minutes are up.
Okay.
So try not to filibuster.
Okay.
All right. 10 minutes starts in 3, 2, 1.
Okay. I saw the movie on the big screen, which I highly recommend. If you ever get a chance to see it on the big screen, I think it really benefits from that. I also saw it with my son. He's 20, and we watch scary movies together. So we're big fans of like A24 and like Blumhouse and Neon to a lesser degree, but we like kind of, art house, weird, intense, original horror movies. So looking at all the trailers for Longlegs, we just got little flashes of things that looked really cool. And Nick Cage, of course, I think people can be divided on him. I think when he's on his game, I think he's amazing. I think the movie Pig was great, right? He can be really over the top, kind of color out of space, or he can be more subdued. I like him in this role. I think one of the first things that really stood out to me in the movie, what I liked about it, was really the vibe of it. I think the aesthetic, the cinematography, the art direction, the style of the film, I thought was super cool. Had kind of a retro vibe, really nice shots, sweeping shots and close-ups and distance shots and colors that really played. I don't know a lot of Osgood Perkins. That's Tony Perkins, right? Psycho, his son. I haven't seen a lot of his stuff, but I really appreciated the aesthetic. So I think if nothing else, the look of the film is really cool. It's really interesting. There are really some interesting shots, just really weird, original takes on things in the foreground, things in the background. Really, I thought stylistically and aesthetically, the art direction was just amazing. So I love the colors. I like the look and feel of it. I also will give bonus points for originality to the character Longlegs. I assume we're okay to talk about spoilers and stuff here. Yeah, right. So I think they did a good job with the trailer of not showing him too much. And I think Longlegs benefits the most when you get him in small doses. And there were some moments in this film that were genuinely creepy, whether it's quick cuts or it's just like the way they would frame a shot, just showing like the lower part of his face. The weird thing he's doing with like his hands and his fingers. Like the character of Longlegs I thought was really original, very different, super creepy. Like you really had to pay attention. It was definitely kind of making my skin crawl here and there. Definitely some original choices as far as the character of Longlegs. I also thought it was a really interesting mix of genres in that you have like the occult stuff and you have the dolls, you have the Satanism, and then you have kind of this detective mystery that's woven into it. So I came up writing Neo-Noir, and so I'm a big fan of kind of gritty Neo-Noir realism. When I think of films, I think of like Mulholland Drive and Memento and The Machinist and even like Blade Runner. This is kind of where you can take the occult and the detective stuff and give it a Neo-Noir flavor, that kind of bleakness, but then slide into the weird. So I thought the like detective stuff reminded me a lot of movies I also like Seven. A lot of like the codes and you're figuring out the puzzles and what do the numbers mean and the dates and the triangles and all the stuff we're trying to figure out. So like that part was really fun, I think, to play along with as well. I like the casting. There were some really great actors and actresses in it. The main actress, I know I've seen her in other stuff. Nick Cage, obviously, in smaller doses was fantastic. Blair Underwood's in here, Blair Underwood going back to, what was he in? Like, is that Law and Order or the I've seen a bunch of stuff, but he was great. There are a bunch of, even the woman who plays her mom, the nun, was an actress I've seen before. But I really liked the casting. I thought the actors and actresses did a really good job of kind of fitting the roles. I also think there are some things they did well with kind of the horror aspect to it. So one of my favorite movies of all time, and I would say probably my favorite A24 film in recent memory in the last 10 years, is Hereditary. And I think what it did really well, Hereditary, was the subtlety. So there were moments in this film that I think tried to do those things, and it worked pretty well. There was a lot of stuff that was happening in the background that if you weren't paying attention, you would see kind of, goat-like satanic figures that would kind of, appear in the background. It wasn't as much of a jump scare as like you got in Hereditary. The scene up in the corner, right? The first time I saw it, like I almost jumped out of my chair. That movie was more tense for me, but I think the way it had the subtle aspects of the satanic cults and Satanism and the devil worship and all that stuff, I thought worked as well. And they were recurring. They came up a couple of different times. I also thought the dolls were really interesting. silver spheres that we're putting inside them, the way they're put under, like, you know, the houses and stuff. Like, it was really, they were putting a lot of the tricks into this movie. And then I don't know if you guys noticed it, but when they destroyed the dolls, like this black smoke kind of drifted up out of them, like kind of be your soul. So I thought altogether the stuff worked. And I know at the end of the day, you know, is it a 10 out of 10 for me? No. But I think overall the experience was really satisfying, and it did a lot of really original things. And I think for most of what it was trying to do, I thought it was pretty successful. I'll end there.
Yeah, that's all well and good. I think it was trying to do all those things, but ultimately I feel like this is a movie that didn't quite know what it was, know what it wanted to be. I worked on a film once in Seattle, and I won't name the film, obviously, but it got a review that was like a review that reminded me of this movie, and it was just like, this movie is deceptively bad. And that was one of my favorite reviews ever, because the movie looks beautiful. It's shot really well. It's designed really well. It's got good actors in it with great performances, but ultimately the story just falls kind of flat for me. And I think Longlegs did the same thing. This is a very paint by the numbers horror story disguised as something deeper. And I think Neon has a sort of propensity to do that. They sort of like artsy fartsy their stuff. They go into a lot of like imagery and these like scenes that I don't know, they're trying to get too artsy with it, trying to get too cute with it. And I felt like they definitely did that in this movie. They also tried to cram too many things into one narrative. Like, what kind of movie do you want to tell? I don't need creepy dolls and demons and serial killers and the FBI and suicide families. Like, this isn't Cabin in the Woods, okay, Neon? Chill out. And then I do just got to say, I cannot take Nick Cage seriously. I don't care what Nick fanboys say. I can't do it. Like, I've seen it too many times. I've seen the reel too many times. I just, like, when Nick Cage is freaking out, I know I see him acting his balls off, but like, I'm over it. It doesn't do it for me. I don't really buy it because it's so over the top. And honestly, the opening scene of this movie, like, it kind of blew it for me right away, because it was like kind of a cool shot, but then he pops in and I see it's Nick Cage, and I just felt like that was like a Nick Cage is here. Everybody get excited. That's what you're here to see, right? and I do feel like that is what kind of Nick Cage brings to a movie, and I hate it. It annoys me. And frankly, I hate that she sees I hate that we know right away that she sees Longlegs. For me, that is, she's like, her agency as a character, it makes her powers because of him. It makes her a lot less interesting to me. And I would have liked to piece that mystery together on my own. I would have liked to learn that, like, as the characters learned it, because we get that too. But again, this movie, like, kind of doesn't know what it really wants to do. It's going through this narrative. Everybody else is kind of peeling back these layers, but we already know the answer. We already know what's at the end. We know she saw him. And so, like, the more we learn, the more we just sort of learn, oh, this happened to her, and it's not even a surprise. It's like supposed to be a reveal that he lives in her house, but I don't know. It seemed really predictable to me. Also, hate, like, when things just happen 'cause movie. Huge pet peeve for me. Every family except for the frickin' Carters, it took a while. Like, the doll was like working on them. The doll was like slowly seducing them. The powers of the devil were slowly working their way in, and eventually they all snap and kill each other. But like with the Carters, it's like, boom, right now. Why? Because it's convenient. Because this is our climax. Because movie. That just drives me crazy. I hate it every time I see it. And it really sucks because the acting, again, like, there's so many good things about this film. Like, I actually really loved that scene when he's like, yeah, we'll go in the kitchen and cut the cakes. And just like his wife's reaction, she like does this like terrified laugh thing where she's like, oh, I'm gonna die. And it was like brilliant acting. But I was like, too bad I already don't care, because like, you blew it, because that's totally not your motif. You established a motif throughout this entire film, and now you're just breaking it because it's convenient for your climax. It drives me crazy. I hate when it happens. I think Neon's gluttonous with its artsy fartsy bullshit. And yeah, take away your character agency just so you can give a little Nick Cage fanboy splooge to my face. First scene of the movie. No, thank you. Longlegs blows. That's what I gotta say.
I think you got the right
Perfect
dice roll.
timing. Perfect timing. That was on the dot. 10
Wow.
Nice.
minutes.
So that
Oh,
means
beer of the week. Beer
Yay, I love the
of
beer of the week.
I
And
can't
thank
yell
you
into
for
my
inviting us
microphone
to your
anymore.
TED Talks. It was
Yeah,
great.
that was fantastic.
You're welcome. That was a solid, like, right down the middle. We don't usually do it that way, Richard. It's usually back and forth quite a bit. That was great.
That was
great.
absolutely incredible.
That was
Never
great.
seen anything like it.
I got a lot to say to my brother, but we're gonna save that for the comments. He's coming after my studio, man.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
He'll
Well,
be coming after my boys, Neon.
that's not
I
on
got-
me.
I
That's on
got
them.
things to say. All right. But before we get into that, let's show off our fermented drinks of the week. The reason I say fermented drinks of the week is because this season am not drinking beer. I'm usually trying to display my favorite liquor. You used to be able to see it in frame, is whiskey. But I'm going to start off because I'm just eager to say Longlegs is a wild ride. And so I thought, you know what? I need something bold. I need something I don't really like, but I might try and enjoy for this evening. And so I'm drinking Don Julio tequila, ladies and gentlemen, straight out of the glass.
Nice.
Okay.
It's going to be terrible. This is going to
Okay.
be absolutely awful, but to Longlegs.
The
Jeremy, what are you drinking?
I assume a nun brought that to your door and delivered it to you because that is pure Satan jizz right in that bottle there.
Oh boy. Just full on. Yeah.
Yeah, you better cross
I-
yourself.
Yeah. I mean, doing the sign of the cross will probably burn on you after drinking some of that, but hey, it's a return of Blade and Bow from last week because I have an entire bottle. And
That's fair.
yeah, it's I didn't intend to drink this for the sole purpose of making Travis feel bad about what he decided to have, but that's kind of where we ended up.
I
When
don't
it works, it works.
Yeah,
feel bad.
yeah.
All right, Clayton, what are you drinking?
Well, I usually go to my local bottle shop and just try to pick like an indie brew from a brewery I like around here that sort of like fits the theme. This is Black Raven's Halloween beer. It is called Splinters. Look at that nice, creepy
Ooh.
can. Can you
Ooh.
guys see that can good?
Nice.
Ooh, that looks like a neon production.
It does, right? Little gratuitous, but nice. I like it. I like
A little
it.
expected.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm gonna drink that. It is a barrel aged Scotch. Black Raven, your boys down in Redmond. They're a great brewery. They do a lot of awesome stuff. They're a Crypticon sponsor, so they like sponsor our VIP room every year. So I'm a big Black Raven fan. Thank you, Black Raven. Shout out.
So wait, is that whiskey in a can, or is that pre-mixed?
No, just a barrel aged Scotch ale.
Yeah,
Oh, Scotch ale,
he's
okay.
actually
Scotch
drinking
ale,
beer.
yeah.
Okay,
He's
all right.
usually me and Jeremy are the odd ones out, but this
Okay.
time,
If I was having a drink, I would have a Maker's Mark Manhattan up with cherries.
great
Nice.
choice. Great choice.
Fabulous.
I used to be an old-fashioned drinker.
Yeah.
I say this as if I'm super old. I'm not. But I have been becoming more of a Manhattan fan. The vermouth taste is really, really delicious.
Although I've been out of the whiskey game for a long time, so I'm sure there's a lot more nice, sipping whiskeys out there since my time. So you probably have better recommendations. That's a little old school. But
Well,
It'll get
now
done.
let's cheers to Longlegs.
Yeah,
Water,
cheers to
beers,
Longlegs.
Longlegs.
to
The
Longlegs.
long legs.
My goodness, we did it.
Are you doing water? Are you doing tea? You doing coffee with the mug there?
I've got my tea so I can keep the golden pipes lubricated. I like there's an Earl Grey. I drink a Lady Grey, which actually has a little, I don't know what the extra note is, but it's a little lighter, I don't know what the difference is between Lady Grey and Earl Grey, but it's not as bitter. And I love it. So I drink that.
Yeah, Lady Grey.
yeah.
I like that too.
I'm a
I
refined
love a London fog with Lady
Mhm.
Grey tea. That's one of my favorite drinks.
Very nice. Very nice.
Well, our next section here, we're going to get into some fermented facts, which I figure, Jeremy, if you have any that I miss, just jump in there. But I got the
Okay.
pages open and I'm ready to go. So, first fermented fact, I guess a lot of the Longlegs encrypted messages contained misspellings, which was a nod to the actual Zodiac killer because he was notorious for grammar mistakes, which actually made decoding his messages even harder because they were like, oh, maybe we like made a mistake with this. It was like, no, he just doesn't really know how to write.
Right to the third grade level. It's fine.
Great.
There's a really cool story that's on the trivia page of IMDb that Osgood Perkins apparently remembers here or recalls that one of his sound people came up and said, when Nick Cage is working and mic'd up, it is absolutely amazing. When he's going big, he goes right to the line. Like he's been in the game for so long, he knows exactly where to put his voice at the line for editing. And when he's whispering, he's right at the line of like just before they're going to lose it. So like, it's just cool. Like you can think what you want about Nick Cage and people do have a lot of opinions, but it's like watching an expert at the sport, like watching, like watching a Tom Brady, like when they're so high at like the years in the game that they just know those little tricks is so cool.
You know, and you make a good point about him too. I was going to ask Clay, like there are some actors and actresses that you put them in a movie and they just pull you out. So is Nick Cage one of those for you, Clay? Because I see what you mean. He can overperform. He's not necessarily an actor that I immediately am like, I'm out of it. I think for some people, Tom Cruise is that guy. What are the actors or actresses for you guys that the minute you see them, you're like, oh, fucking Timothy Chalamet, I can't watch this. Is there somebody that like moves you out of there's somebody that bugs you that really you can't enjoy the movie because they ruin it for you?
I got several, but Clay, you first. You first.
Yeah, Clay.
Yeah, so we always talk about what we actually think after the facts. I actually am just hating on Nick Cage because he's low-hanging fruit, easy target. I do think he's a consummate professional and he's badass, actually. He can pull me out, but usually that's the fault of the movie, not the fault of Nick Cage, I would say. It's generally like he stays in his lane. It just depends on how wide of a lane they give him. And I think a good director like Osgood Perkins has 100% track record with Nick now. He did Pig too, I think. Or Neon did Pig. So Neon has a good track record with Nick. So no, he's not automatically. Definitely not. I mean, mostly it's just people who are like the really shitty people like Kevin Spacey. Who are like, I loved House of Cards, and then I learned all the things, and I was like, never mind. I regret loving that show, unfortunately. And just stuff like that, I guess. There's a couple actors, but yeah, I mean, for the most part, if you're doing your best, you're doing good work out there. I'm not gonna be a hater for the most part.
Well,
and I agree with you, Travis. That's a good point about the consummate professional thing. Like that scene where his interrogation scene is just a masterclass of like using your body position to be mega creepy. Like the way he tilts his head down when he's talking about when you get down in the dirty work, like a mop. And then he's like doing this thing. And he's like doing his hand stuff. Like, yeah, this is just awesome. Awesome performance by Nick.
Yeah, and I love that Richard mentioned, and we will get back to facts. We're kind of going all over the place. That's okay. A little chaotic, just so you know.
Do that.
Yeah,
I do that sometimes as the host.
Let it happen.
I love that you mentioned Tom Cruise because I think he's one I see the same. Regardless of what I think of him personally, like outside of films, you can tell that man has been in the action business for so long that he just knows everything you're supposed to do to make an action movie click. I would say the person who pulls me out, it's anytime. I hate when actors only have one face. And so like there's two I'm thinking of and they do it in the same way, but they're male and female. Jennifer Lopez and Dwayne The Rock Johnson. Like I can't, they're never different. And they've been put in different positions. Yeah. I know Jennifer got an Oscar for Selena. But the thing is she was a Hispanic like pop star and singer. So it's like, I don't know how much of a like range that really expressed because she just, and every movie I've seen with Lopez, I just think she plays the exact same character and I get pulled out of the story. And Dwayne The Rock Johnson is Dwayne The Rock Johnson. He's never a character. He's just himself. And
he just shows up with any problem that you have to throw the rock at. It's great.
I think Vince Vaughn's a little bit the same way. For me anyway. But I agree with those. And it's interesting because Dwayne can certainly act. You know, he's got pipes. He can make like crazy WWE faces. But yeah, it just doesn't translate well to film. I feel like he's more of like a live performer.
Yeah.
Jeremy, do you have one?
I have two precise answers for this question. One is a person, one is a thing that happens. So, person, it's Mark Wahlberg.
Yeah.
He's just Wahlberging all over the place.
The fighter,
whenever he
though.
shows up.
Yeah.
The fighter, though.
The fighter, though. Yeah.
Although
fine,
he kind
whatever.
of did play himself. Christian Bale just like never mind. He gave a masterclass in that movie, so maybe Mark was just like riding his coattails a little.
Yeah, look, your boy Marky Mark, he's whatever. He shows up and that's it. And I'm just immediately pulled out because I'm like, oh, it's Mark Wahlberg. This is gonna be at best fine, usually. Now, my second answer is a thing that happens. It's when famous people play parts in like animated films and they're 100% not voice actors.
Yeah, that is
Every single
bummer.
time that happens.
Yep.
You can fix every Mark Wahlberg movie in a simple way. Just cast Matt Damon instead.
Yeah, let's just always cast Matt Damon. He's usually free for at least a cameo.
That's good. I like that.
Great question, though, Richard. And
Beautiful.
real quick, couple more facts. I guess to promote the film, Neon created a phone number, 458-666-4355. And if you dial it, you get a pre-recorded message from Nick Cage's Longlegs, like talking to you through the phone.
Wow.
Not going to be doing that.
What's the number?
458-666, obviously.
Naturally.
4355. I don't know if it's still up, but yeah. During the promotions, they had that number running and you could call it.
That's cool.
Bummer.
That's cool.
It's no longer up.
Speaking of promotions, Osgood Perkins specifically requested that Neon not use Nicolas Cage on the posters or in the trailer.
Yeah.
He did not want him advertised as like the titular character. And so they had to come up with a lot more creative promotion plans, which honestly, I think sold the movie better. I remember watching the first full-length trailer in theaters and I was already hooked. And then this little like starring Nicolas Cage came across the screen and I was like, oh, I didn't even see him there. Like that's pretty intriguing. So I was in. They did a very good job pitching this movie. And then real rapid fire here. Osgood Perkins has had 3 directorial. He'd been in the director chair 3 times before this. The Black Coat's Daughter. I Am the Pretty Thing That Lives in the House. Very long title.
Oh, that's a good movie.
Yeah. And Gretel and Hansel, which looks good. The story, not the best in my opinion.
Richard.
But the Black Coat's Daughter, I was very impressed with. So when you look at his track record, only one of those 3 he didn't write, and it was Gretel and Hansel.
Yeah.
And so when he's in the director's chair and behind the pen, he's making some pretty good stuff.
Oh, great.
And then everything else I would say as a fun fact is just me singing the praises of Neon, which we'll get into. But that's our fermented facts. Now we will hop over, unless you have more, Jeremy.
I guess the only thing I could think of is more of a fun fact that people too often forget. It was 5 words long. Academy Award winner Nicolas Cage.
There you go. There you go.
Yep.
That's it though.
Yep. I love it. You put him with the Coen brothers, and that's just movie magic right there. All right, Clayton, you've already kind of started to allude to a bit of your fib about Nick, but were you fibbing any more about this movie? What are your actual thoughts?
Yeah, I was almost entirely fibbing. Actually, probably the truest thing I said was Nick. Like, there's a lot of truth to that. I think he does overact sometimes. He definitely will pull me out of a movie if he's Nick Caging too much. But this movie was like the exact way to harness and use Nick Cage's powers for evil. And it was perfect. No, I love this movie. I've watched it 4 times. I really love the use of like film for the flashbacks and then digital. It seemed like they used digital, but film for the flashbacks because it was a lot grainier. Or they just did something different with their production. But whatever they did, they had a very distinctly like old feel for the flashbacks. Like you could feel it in every layer of the movie. I love, like Richard was saying, a lot of the framing. Like he looks a lot taller when you cut the top of his head off. There's just a lot of brilliant stuff with that kind of stuff. The framing, the color, the art, the set designs. It was really, really well put together movie, top to bottom. All the performances were excellent. The dialogue was great. Richard knows from reading my shit that I am a big dialogue junkie. I love the dialogue in this. Like, I mean, one of the very first conversations between all the FBI agents when Carter's like, I got to talk about my mariners. My wife's getting good at faking it. And Browning's like, that's a slippery slope, Captain, you know? And that was like a great lines. I also love when he brings her to his house and he's like, come in and meet my family. And she's like, do I have to? It's like, what a great line. Like, how many times have we all thought that, you know, but they never say it. Nobody ever says it. It was awesome to like see it actually get said. I always like love when stuff like that happens. It just feels like, oh yeah, I've definitely been there. And like, I didn't say that, but like this character, Harker, she's such a well-developed, solid character. She feels very real. She feels very organic all the way through. She feels very much herself. And all the characters do. I think this movie's put together on every layer of the writing. It was really, really well done. I like that this film, I was totally making it up when I said about the gluttonous stuff or the movie not knowing what it was. It knew exactly what it was, and that was awesome. It felt like if this happened in real life to me, you know, which like a lot of movies don't manage to do that with supernatural horror, but this one certainly did. Like it felt like if the FBI actually discovered it, even had Carter sort of reverse go through the stages of denial, which was interesting. He starts off like basically believing in psychics because it's valuable to him, but when it starts to challenge his authority, challenge his worldview, he sort of reverts, and that's ultimately what gets him killed. So I thought that was really cool. And this movie trusts its audience. It doesn't over-explain anything, and I love that. I'm a huge fan of that. Like, this movie knows my viewers are smart enough to figure this out on their own, and if they don't do it the first time, they'll do it the second time. It also doesn't, like, mince word. It doesn't waste any time. Like, I love the opening scene with Harker and that other agent. Not the opening scene, but the opening scene with her as an adult. They knock on that door, you hear the footsteps on the stairs, and then it's bang, shotgun to the face. And it's just like, they're not messing around in this movie, you know?
Yeah.
And also that's just the perfect way to award like a male FBI agent for gaslighting his female comrade, you know? Like shoot him right.
Oh boy, right away.
That's what you get. Should have listened. But yeah, I thought this movie was great. It dumps you right into the action, but without being like overly breakneck. It also had like a slow burn to it, despite how quickly it gets off the ground. I don't know if that makes sense to people, but it felt like kind of both. And I thought it blended it really well, because obviously we all like fast paced, high tension movies, but like I am also a sucker for a slow burn. And when you can do both, it reminds me of The Witch. Eggers the Witch, you know, like they kill the baby early and you're like, oh, that's okay. Here we go. And then it's really slow for a while and then it picks back up. And I love when you like demonstrate that the threat is super real, the threat is super present, but then you pump the brakes and you let people like live in that dread, like get to know the characters, but also kind of knowing like what's up ahead of them is that threat is very real. And I thought this movie did a good job of that too. So I loved it. Great job, Neon. I love Neon. I'm just playing Neon. You know I love you.
Now, Richard, I want to hear your real thoughts, but I want to ask a question as well, and then hopefully you can just leap right into that, because I don't want to lose this question. Clayton just mentioned something that I want to ask an expert writer like yourself. Timelessness. Like, this movie has a timelessness to it. I can see rewatching this in 20 years and getting the same experience, even though the time period has changed. No Country for Old Men, it's set in like the 70s. It's my favorite movie and will be forever, because it just has that factor of it doesn't have to live in the period that it lives in for you to enjoy it. How do you do that as a writer and still write in periods, but keep that level of this thing will not age, it will stay?
Good question.
That's a really great question. I agree with you. I think this film has some kind of out of time elements. I just watched a really interesting movie with my son called Cure. It's Kurosawa's Cure. I don't know if you guys have seen it. I would highly recommend checking it out. It was a really kind of slow movie, a lot of dialogue. It's a guy who's like keeps asking people questions. Where am I? Who are you? And it feels kind of silly at first. It feels kind of slow, but once you understand what he's doing and what it's all about, like, it becomes super creepy and super unsettling. Has a very Brian Evanson feel to it. In fact, I sent Brian Evanson an email saying, "Have you seen this movie? It feels like something you could have written. I think you might enjoy it." And he's like, "Yeah, I saw it like a month ago." He's like, "This came out in 97." But that's a movie that I also felt could stand the test of time because it's out of time. I think the way you can really make things work in writing as well as film is if you speak to a lot of universal truths. So when you speak to on a human level, big broad brushstrokes, everybody loves, everybody loses, everybody has some sort of betrayal, right? We all have some sort of childhood, some sort of family. There's a lot of common connecting points that we can relate to other people with, and those are great ways to connect when you're writing stories. With the broad strokes, it's such a broad idea or thought or feeling or emotion or experience that people will have experienced it in one way or another. The up close personal details, I said big broad brush strokes and like little fine details, those are very specific. I worked in a McDonald's. I lived in like Conway, Arkansas. Like I drank this beer, right? It's like very specific details. I went through this particular hell. And so those are harder points. But when you connect with somebody who has that exact experience, like there's empathy and sympathy. Sympathy is you're feeling compassion and feel bad for somebody. Empathy is the same thing, plus you can relate to it. So there's a general humanity and a care for people and a broad experience, and there's a very specific thing. So what I try and do is shotgun approach that. So I do both the broad brush strokes and then also the little things. So I try to sprinkle in a lot of little details because you never know which detail is going to click with somebody. Whether the 1966 Mustang key that you had a horse on it, or that like the particular smell of, or thinking about White Castles at 2 a.m, or going to like Waffle House, or like whatever you're talking about, little details, people go, "Oh, I know that thing," right? So I think that's a great way to kind of write things out of time. I also try to avoid specific like moments in history in my work because I think that will date it. I think It Follows is a really weird vibe because it's kind of a classic slasher feel, but then they have these weird like clamshell flip phones. So like you're like, where the hell? When the hell is this set? 1970 or 2070? I love movies and I love books and stories that can exist kind of outside time and space. So like my novel Incarnate, it's somewhere between like Barrow, Alaska and the Arctic, but it's a made up place. And so I kind of bend the rules towards whatever I want. And then like I'm not talking a lot about like cell phones. I'm not talking about pop culture. I'm not talking about politics. Like I leave those things outside of the story and just focus on what's happening in the moment. Some movies really like to lean into it. There's a lot of great I want to say like, was it Nightcrawler? Or there's like some ones feel very rooted in like history, like the 70s or a certain vibe that is kind of a place and time. But I think if you can find a way to tell your story where it feels outside of it, then I think you really stand the test of time. The other thing I try and do, and I think that's what the best writers and filmmakers try and do well, I try to connect on a couple of different levels. I call it body, mind, and soul. So body is it entertaining? Is the book, are you turning the pages? Am I holding your attention? Is it interesting? Is it compelling? So in a movie, it would be like, is it hard to look away? The next level is the emotional level, kind of get you to feel something. If I can get you to, whether it's laugh or cry or turn you on or scare you, but I want you to feel something. The opposite of love is not hate. The opposite of love is apathy. And so if I can get you to love or hate or feel something, then I feel like I can connect with you. Then the third level is intellectually, can I do something that's weird or unique or stimulating the old brain pan? So you're like, ooh, what was that thing, right? Stephen Graham Jones had this idea of a genetic chimera. In the Incarnate, it's a sin eater. And so the sin eater absolves people of their sins and then birth these creatures into existence. And so I try to show people things like they may not have seen before and then present ideas and philosophies and thoughts that they might chew on for a while. So I think with the films that really stand the test of time, sometimes could do those things. It's not that you can't have a good period piece, not that you can't have a movie set in time, but I think the ones that kind of transcend it, and it's more about the feeling and the experience of the moment, right? I think have a good chance of standing up to the sands of time. Sorry,
And I do love. Oh
That's
no,
great.
that's a fantastic answer. I love too that this movie kind of manages to do both, right? Because it captures that like 70s vibe with the car, with the gritty film, and they intentionally narrow the aspect ratio and everything. Like when you watch this in the theater, it's actually like a third of the screen is just black. They did that on purpose. Like they made it look like the 70s in every aspect of the flashbacks, and that was awesome. And they don't have to tell you it's the 70s. They don't have to like have a radio broadcast or a cheesy like something on the TV. They're just like you know where you are, because it looks like a home video. And that's like how you're seeing her memories, and that was awesome. Such a cool commentary on like how we used to glimpse the past versus kind of like how we do it now. So yeah, I thought it managed to do both, and that was really cool. Yeah, and like even if there's even like some stuff that links it to the present, like if you're a baseball fan, it's one of those things, Richard, like you said, like there's only a few years in history where the Mariners were worth talking about. So like if you're a baseball fan, then like it's probably in this time, judging by everything else around it. And he's a Mariners fan that's happy to talk about the Mariners. It must be this year. So yeah, it was cool how they did that.
Yeah. I think sometimes it's also what you're focusing on in the film or in the story. There's a Paul Tremblay story in The New Black behind you there called It's Against the Law to Feed the Ducks. And there's a post-apocalyptic moment that kind of resonates in the background about a third of the way in, but it's not about that. It's not about whether it's aliens or nuclear weapons or zombie apocalypse. It's about this nuclear family trying to hold on to their innocence as long as they can and just survive that. So it's about this really small scene, right? And so that kind of moment it will be there forever outside of time. When you go into the specifics of all the details, that's when you kind of start to mark your dates and kind of date yourself. But that's just another example I was thinking of. I know you want to get back to the movie though. I probably like this movie a slightly bit less than what I was saying. So I'm not going to say that I didn't love the movie. I love the movie, but the marker for me is Hereditary. So that's like my 10 out of 10. My favorite A24 film, The Witch, is right next to it. So that's kind of my aesthetic. My favorite 4 A24 films are Hereditary, The Witch, Enemy, and Under the Skin. And so I love what they do. I would put A24, and then I put Neon, and then I put Blumhouse. Now there's some great stuff done. Blumhouse disappoints me all the time, but again, I'm not much of a grindhouse guy. I'm not much of a slasher guy. So, like what did I just see? Just saw something that was kind of Heretic. So
yeah,
really
I haven't seen that one yet.
Liked it a lot. The end went a little bonkers for me, but that's me. The things that bugged me in this movie, I love Nick Cage. I could have taken a little bit less. Like I wish the shots would have lingered a little less, held the mystery a little bit long. When we had him on the scene in the station, like I just didn't want the camera to stick on him. I agree with you, Clay. I love his performance. He's fascinating to watch. All the little things he's doing, the fingers and the rocking, and then of course he bashes his head. Like I love to watch it. I just would have liked to kind of get less with him, and it's the same thing with me and gore. Like the end of Hereditary, the first time bugged me a little bit. The end of Midsummer bugged me a little bit. When they're bashing the old guy's head with a hammer, bugged me a little bit. There's a lot of these movies that just the end of Suspiria, the remake, just kind of off the charts. Oh, what you saw something else? Not Yeah, no, it was Heretic. Okay. I just kind of check out. If it's too much, I just over the top, I laugh. It's still good. So I think the other thing is that I think with the movie, I love the style, and you can get me pretty far on style. The aesthetic, the art direction, the way it's filmed. Like I just loved looking at the movie. I just wanted a slightly deeper experience. And for me, I just didn't care as much about the characters as I wanted to. And I think partly because maybe some of it did feel a bit expected. But I love the dolls. They were creepy as hell. I love the sphere. I like the satanic stuff in the background. There was a lot to like. So I'm just nitpicking away. But, that's why I give it like an 8 or a 9 as opposed to a 10, because it just didn't quite hammer home all those things. It's always a personal, subjective reaction to films. But I love the movie, and I really enjoyed it. That's why I said I think if you ever get a chance to see it on the big screen, go see it, because one of those.
Right.
One of my favorite movies of all time is Blade Runner, but I had never seen it on the big screen. I think I only saw it on the big screen like 3 years ago, and I was just in heaven. Because I mean, the music, the scope of it, some things are just, better. And I think this is a movie that really benefits from the big screen. The colors, the shots, the way it's done, it's just beautiful to watch. Yeah.
Clay, you got something, but real quick, Richard, because you're a Blade Runner fan, I gotta know, because I haven't had the opportunity to talk to a lot of big Blade Runner fans. I love 2049. What'd you think?
I went into it with a really low expectation. I was like, please just don't suck. And it didn't. I loved it. I don't think I could ever love it as much as Blade Runner. I mean, the actors, the vibe, the music. I mean, it's iconic filmmaking, really, for me. But it was pretty close. If I give the original Blade Runner a 10 out of 10, it was probably a 9. I will say that, who's the guy who plays the young cop?
Ryan Gosling. In the new one or old one?
Yeah, Gosling.
Gosling.
He's a guy that could pull me out of a movie sometimes. I like him in Drive. I like him in stuff, but there's someone about him that feels a little comedic or a little like I'm waiting for him to goof on it or something. It's hard for me to take him as a serious actor. I thought it was really good, that movie. I thought him playing kind of this robotic character fit, with his acting. I think Scarlett Johansson's performance Under the Skin was perfect for her as an actress because I thought it matched up with some of her sensibilities as an actress, right?
Yeah.
But I really liked, and I saw that on IMAX with my kids, and I thought it was beautiful. I thought it was amazing. I couldn't quite get to a 10 on it, but I definitely loved it more than I thought I would.
I think this is one of those things, and then Clay will bring it back to Longlegs, but one of those things where like I didn't see the original Blade Runner in the theater. I saw it on a DVD, and I love it. Like it's a classic. It's instant classic. I watch it over and over again. But Blade Runner 2049 and Denis Villeneuve's whole filmography I've seen in the theaters, and he's kind of become my I'm forgetting the director. This is terrible.
Your Scorsese?
Not my Scorsese that made Blade Runner and Blade Runner and Alien.
That was
wow.
We can't
gosh.
on a movie podcast all be blanking on the director of
It was
Alien.
Ridley Scott.
Ridley Scott.
Thank you, Jeremy.
He's kind of becoming my Ridley Scott, of like the guy that I'm there for his career at the peak of it. Yeah. And it's great. But
I was just looking over his body at work with my son, and I was like, God damn, I love everything he's done. He did he did Arrival, right? He did
Arrival, Prisoners.
Prisoners. We just watched that. We just watched Sicario,
Dune 1 and 2, Sicario. He's killing it. But Clay, bring it back to old Longlegs with Osgood Perkins, who's also he's starting. He's not killing it yet, but this is the beginning.
It's Eggers for me. I will watch everything he does. I don't care what it is. But and I agree with you too, Richard. The Witch, that's my favorite horror movie of all time. But bringing it back to Longlegs. And I was actually just going to chime in on the movie theater thing, but like if you're watching any of these horror movies these days from these good studios, A24, Blumhouse, Neon, anybody doing it right, you have to go to the theater.
Yeah.
I mean, if there's one thing I learned from making films, it's that like you get like 30% of the film at your house. Yep. When you're in the movie theater, the color design, the sound design especially is mostly in the sound design. But I mean, you don't even get half of it when you watch it at your house, even if you have a good home studio. Like you would have to have a really good one to get anywhere near what the theaters give you. And horror movies especially, they really rely on that, and it's not just music stings. It can bring that gore to a level that is, again, impactful. Because like I'm with you, Richard. If it gets over the top and I'm watching it, I honestly mute it sometimes. I'm just like, I get it. Like, cool. Yeah. And I that takes me right out. I don't find it scary. I find it gratuitous and boring, frankly. Yeah. But when you're in the theater and you can hear it and like you can experience it on those visceral levels, it does again kind of bring it back around for me and make it impactful again. Totally. And I just don't feel that outside the theater. So, I've watched Longlegs for real 4 times now, and twice in the theater, twice at home. And the theaters is really a pretty impactful experience. It's a good movie.
I agree. I highly recommend it. I mean, I remember when I saw Hereditary, I mean, I was sweating. My skin was
Yeah.
I was having a fight or flight response. Like I was really having a visceral reaction to it. When we just saw Heretic, we missed it the first time through, and then we kind of caught it on its last go around. The directors were actually there for a Q&A, and so that was part of the Music Box Theater here in Chicago. And so we got to hear their thoughts on it too. So I will just say, hey, if you get a chance to see these movies in these films in the theater the first time they come out, go out, support them. If it looks remotely worth seeing on a big screen, go see it. Support A24 and Neon and Blumhouse, these smaller independent distributors and producers, because it's really going to help them to survive. And it's going to be an experience you're not going to regret. I mean, even if you hate the movie, at least it will be an intense experience. I mean, I saw Beau is Afraid, and I was like, what the hell? But I'm really glad I saw it, because there were parts of it that were just really super powerful, right?
Yeah.
There's nothing quite like that experience.
Yeah.
And
Jeremy-
those three studios we need them. We need people like them. They're keeping good horror alive. They're keeping good cinema alive. Like, that's very important. Very important to support your indie companies. So yeah, go see those movies. I agree, Richard. If it looks remotely viewable, go see it.
Yeah, we've even been lucky enough to get some of my work in front of A24, and so I'm gonna just cross my fingers, because I would love to see someone like an Eggers do Incarnate or any of my stories.
Yeah.
Or
Well,
anything.
that'd be pretty good.
That would be a dream.
I'm gonna nerd out big time in just a second on Neon, but Jeremy, do you have some pitches? Did you watch it, or just in general on horror movies? I want to give you the mic for a second here.
Just in general on horror movies. Okay.
Longlegs if you can.
Longlegs
if I
if you
can.
can.
Well, look, here's what I'm gonna say. I'm just gonna follow on the discussion that we were having. But like, yeah, every single movie I've ever seen has been better at the theater. It's the whole environment. It's and it's the screen being big enough that you can't miss it. It's the sounds penetrating your entire body and distracting from the fact that your feet are slightly sticking to the floor. Yeah, but there's nothing else like it, especially when a gunshot sounds like God slamming his car door. It's and you get the tiny things in the audio that, like Clay was saying, unless you've got like $1 million sound system at home or some like $10,000 studio grade headphones, you're missing most of that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
There's no real comparison. Even a bad movie in theaters is the best version of that movie, unless it's just offensive to every single one of your senses all at once.
Yeah. We went during my bachelor party.
Nice. Yeah, we did.
I was like, I wanted to watch a movie. I love movies, so we went and watched it. And my old roommate, who he definitely had the like disposition to be a movie nerd, but didn't grow up with them as much as I did. So in college, I kind of made him one. Like he might deny that if he hears this, but I
shout out Colton.
Colton. I introduced Colton to a lot of lot of movies, and he left, and he was like, "Man, it's been a long time since I watched something like that." And he just loved like the horror, the dread, and that is one thing. Longlegs has dread. Any good horror film, you're leaving
really powerful.
Yeah, you're leaving.
Probably the one I forgot was I saw The Substance, so we caught that at a theater before it left. It was, when you buy your tickets, it was like 10 seats. I'm like, how small is this theater going to be? It was still an amazing experience. So even though it was a tiny theater in the corner of like a 12 theater place, it was still worth it. Also a very cool movie, pretty intense. Didn't love the ending as much either.
I've heard Demi Moore did some good work, but
amazing. The cojones on her and the other actress for the movie. It was again, if you can still catch it, catch it. Yeah.
Catch it for sure. Yeah, it's solid.
So I really wanna real quick say in my best sports analyst imitation of a movie guy, like Neon's making a run, man. They're looking up at A24, and I think they know they're on the throne, but they're making a run. They have Longlegs just came out, one of the best horror movies we've gotten in the last, I'd say 5 years. It's up there with the big hitters. Anora is an early shoo-in for an Oscar win. It won,
Blowing up.
It won the
Blowing
Palme
up.
d'Or at the Festival de Cannes or
I
de
have to see
Cannes.
that.
Immaculate got good reviews. Cuckoo at the same time as they were producing Longlegs, they put Cuckoo out, which
Mhm.
Dan Stevens, I'm a big fan of Dan Stevens. He's really making some good stuff. And then
Cuckoo's
Anatomy of the Fall. They made the foreign language Oscar winner last year. In the same year as Ferrari, and that was the same time that they pumped out Crimes of the Future with Vigo. Like they're trying to Triangle of Sadness the year before that. They're making a run. They're giving A24 some stiff indie film competition, and I love that we live in a time when it's like the space race of indie film. Like we have these studios that are just duking it out with good films, and like I want them to compete and just keep competing and keep trying to top each other and keep vying for that throne, because it's been awesome.
Mhm.
Yeah, I will totally agree with you on that. I definitely am more of an A24 fan, but I think Neon is also doing a lot of great stuff. I think they're really coming into their own. And I think the way I think about Neon is the way I think about independent film in general, is that I might not like every movie that A24 puts out. Like Lamb, I had some real issues with. There's some stuff there's some things they do that I don't like, but I'm glad that I live in a world where they're at least taking their shots. And even if they only like 7 out of 10, like I'm glad you're doing it, because somebody's gonna love it. Like I wasn't a big fan of Green Room. People love Green Room. I think because I thought Green Room was going to be something supernatural, and it wasn't. So I just kind of
I hate that.
The clues were giving me the wrong vibe, and I wasn't happy with the ending. But I love, Beau was Afraid. Like it was a crazy movie, but I'm glad they made it right. So I agree with you. I was going to ask you, Travis, do you have like a couple of your favorite Neon films of like all time that really stand out that you think are just 10 out of 10s for you?
Yeah, I have one that's the top of the list. I don't know if you've seen, there's a movie called let me pull this list back up, but a movie called Loose. Have you seen Loose?
Mm-mm.
Yeah, it flew under a lot of people's radars, but the director also has made one of my top favorite horror films, and I'm furiously typing to find this guy. Oh wait, no, this was not the right director. Kelvin Harrison Jr. though is the main star. Which unfortunately his most recent credit is going to be voice acting Mufasa. And, but he was in a movie. He was in a movie called Waves that was directed by Trey Edward Schultz that made It Comes at Night, which I think is just a phenomenal movie. Terribly advertised, but Loose is really good. It's about a boy that is adopted from like an African country by this very prominent white family, and he's just like a straight A honor roll student, and he writes this essay that is very authoritarian and like borderline Nazi-esque in tone. And his teacher basically is like the only one in the entire school that's like, there's something going on with this kid, like something's wrong. And everyone else is like, oh, you're kind of being racist, even though the teacher is black. And so it's just this tense debate of like these political things set in this tiny little setting of his school. And the performance Edward Schultz gives the performance Kelvin Harrison gives is so subtly menacing. Like he basically plays like that serial killer-esque character in the body of a high school kid in a non-horror film.
Yeah.
So you get these scenes where it's just like, no, there is something up with that kid. I think this teacher's kind of right. but he's still the hero throughout most of it. Anyway, yeah, I can't sing the praises of Loose enough, but little tangent there.
Very cool.
To bring it back to Longlegs, I think Clayton just made a point that we actually talked about when we walked out of the theater and you just made a point actually too, of that element of the supernatural tease that doesn't actually pay off to be supernatural. I love that Longlegs could have done that. Like very, very easily could have been like,
I thought they were going to.
There's no devil.
They were going to.
Yeah, there's no devil. It's just a bunch of psychopaths and like but the fact that the like devil was actually present and that it's very clear with all the little background shots
Yeah.
smoke coming out of the doll. I was like, oh, like, yeah, I'm glad you put that actual evil in there, because that evil's in the world, in my opinion. And like, and your movie was moving towards that direction. Don't just tease us and then let us go.
Yeah, it just makes sense. I hate it when a movie has all these like subtle supernatural things going on, and then some dude pops out at the end going, "Ha, it was I all along." Like,
some
was it?
Scooby-Doo bullshit.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
You
And you
have
know
to
that-
explain yourself more now that it's just a dude and not the devil. You get that, right?
And one of the absolute most amazing fucking things in that movie was when they go into the Carter house and she shuts the door and you can see the devil in the, I mean, it's not even a second. I mean, it's like a half a frame that you can see it. They like don't let you see it if you're not looking, but you can pause the movie and the devil's like in the reflection of the door when he closes it. It's so awesome.
Yeah.
But it's like also really obvious. Like they did a really good job at that shot. And that shot, when I first saw it in theaters, that's the one downside to going to the theater is you can't like rewind. But I wanted to be like, did I really just see that? If I did, that was badass.
Right. Right. Yeah, I love that too, because I think a lot of times portraying characters as iconic as like a devil or Satan can be cartoony. Could be, you know, we don't want a guy in red skin with horns and like a pitchfork. We don't want it to be goofy. But what I liked was when I saw it, the glimpses that I saw, it was kind of this triangle shape with these kind of curling goat horns, and just kind of in the background, I was like, I don't like that. Don't like that. Don't like that.
Yeah.
Because I've seen enough shit in my life that that stuff bugs me. If it's believable and when it's subtle, kind of like the book Come Closer, right, with the possession story, when it's subtle, I think that's more believable to me, because the little things, they seem like, oh, it's nothing. It's a little clue. It's a little, but when you add them up, you're like, oh no, it really is something. I can remember my son, he had an assignment for high school and was taking pictures of candles, and he drew like a pentagram. And when he was done with his photo shoot, he came to me and he's like, Dad, what should I do with this, pentagram I drew? And he's like laughing about it. And I'm like, dude, don't draw pentagrams at your fucking house. And so I took the paper and I tore it into 4 different pieces, and he's laughing the whole time. I took one and shredded it and flushed it down the toilet, drowned it. Took another 4, shredded it, took it in the backyard, buried it in the dirt. Took another 4, tore it apart, like set it on fire. Took another 4 and like threw it in the trash. I was trying to like separate it, and he's laughing at me the whole time. That night, I woke up swinging my fist at something standing over me, this black shadow. And we had to like fucking smudge the house to like get rid of this stuff. So I believe a lot of things. I've seen a lot of things. I've fucking, left my body, reverse time, talked to God. Like I've had a lot of weird experiences, not all of them on drugs. And those moments, I believe in a lot of things. So I think the subtlety pays off more than a heavy-handed, like overbearing weight of something as evil as that.
So much more.
Yeah,
I always love those subtle glimpses of the supernatural that, like, because they feel like, to me, they feel like the way the supernatural is in real life, so to speak. Like those who are looking for it, those who want to see it, are more likely to see it. You know, because all of us big horror nerds, big horror fans, we're always looking. If there's a still shot, like I'm looking at every corner of that room. I'm looking at the ceiling. I'm looking at the floor. I'm like, where is it? Why are we here? What do they want me to see? There's something here. And the movies that do it best, sometimes there is and sometimes they're not. Like Paranormal Activity is a great example of that. They do awesome at that. Like here and there's stuff where you are rewarded for your vigilance, and then there's places where it is a fake, but like that's the reason that it's scary. That's the reason it creates, and you can create when you can create tension with a lack of motion. I mean, that's almost more tense than anything else.
Yeah, I love the ambiguity too. I'm always a big fan of, even in non-horror or non-genre fiction. I like to be left like asking questions, and maybe that's the philosophy person in me, but I really liked at Longlegs how it had a little bit of that, where the ending is pretty satisfying, but not totally. I don't think it's quite as good as oh man, it's gonna slip my mind what I was just thinking. Oh, It Comes at Night, which is one of my favorites. Of like, you never know, was the family that they took in actually sick?
Right.
There's no answer, and you can believe what you want, and you can try and find evidence when you rewatch it, but I did like in Longlegs both the slight ambiguity, but also the like, you think you want one answer and you really don't.
Mhm.
Like a lot of times we're like, we want the really happy sunshine daisy ending, because the dread is a little too much and a little overpowering sometimes. But then at the same time, I've seen horror movies where we get that, and it's like, I don't know, it's not quite the same. It doesn't leave you with the same feeling. And same with books. I've read horror books that end with the sunshine and daisies, and like, oh, good prevails in the end. And I'm like, yes, I believe that internally, but sometimes I want my fiction to represent something else and give me a different feeling that I don't encounter more on a daily basis.
Yeah, what I tell my students is you can be ambiguous, you can be open-ended, you just can't be incomplete. So you have to, if you want a satisfying ending, it doesn't mean we put a bow on everything. It just means there is at least one interpretation that you can land on that will satisfy you. There's a story of Brian Evans's Wind Eye that I teach, that at the end of it, you're like, well, did his sister exist, or is this a whole mental health? Did he never have a sister? Is this a mental state, a fugue state where he never had a sister, or did he have one and through what they did, he caused her to disappear? What the beauty of that story is, whichever way you interpret it, both of them are crushing, right? And so I think that's the best way to have more than one interpretation versus having like one that's like, 80% this, that the 20% version is like, if it's that, I wouldn't be happy. But I like to be able to have some sort of satisfying ending where you feel like you've, like we just got done, my son and I were watching, Killing of a Sacred Deer. That's a fucked up movie.
What a movie.
Yes, it is.
I like it a lot, but at the end of it, I'm like, I don't know what every time I watch it, I'm like, I don't know what to feel. I'm like, am I angry? Am I sad? Am I like frustrated? Am I like, it's just a really unique experience. And so that's why I wanted to share with my son, because I'm like, I don't know how you're going to feel about his stuff. And we saw The Lobster before, which is a totally same director, totally different vibe.
Totally different vibe.
Yeah.
But that's why I like to watch these. Like, I used to go to the Chicago International Film Festival. That's why I like to get in front of these things: indie films, foreign films, horror, neo-noir, new weird, whatever we're doing. Get exposed to all these things and then see what really resonates with you. You know, whether it's Eggers, whether it's, you know, these other A24 directors or Neon, Osgood, or whoever, that, you know, there's a wide range of stuff that's going to give you different experiences, different flavors, different, you know, emotional reactions.
What is the writing equivalent of, because Killing of a Sacred Deer and Longlegs are connecting here for me, of that tool they use of just like hitting you in the face with the point and with the villain. Like, because there's that moment in Killing of a Sacred Deer where he sits them down at the diner table and is just like, I gotta kill you or one of your kids or whatever. I forget what the plot is, but I gotta kill someone in your family.
Yeah,
like
he's like, you have to kill one member of your family in order to balance the scales, because you killed my dad because you were drunk and you were a surgeon. Yeah.
Here's how it's gonna happen. I'm gonna just do this thing. And the same with Longlegs, of like, first scene of the movie, we get Longlegs kneeling down. Boom, there's the guy that like is gonna scare you the rest of this film, and then we're gonna slow it down. But what is the writing equivalent? Because I feel like it's a different art form of doing that gut punch that also has legs and can like sizzle.
Yeah. It's really tricky. One of the techniques I talk about when to start a story or start a novel is the narrative hook, and you hook with your title. You hook with the first line, the first paragraph, the first page, the first scene. If you have a book, the first chapter. You want this multi-pronged hook that grabs your reader and doesn't let go. At the same time, you don't want to give everything away. So it's also this like iceberg. So it's like the tip of the spear and the top of the mountain, the top of the iceberg, and then a bunch of it's underwater. So you want to show us enough that we go, holy shit. And whether you're subtle or whether you punch us in the face with it, you set it up. And then what you do from there to Z, that's your style. Is it going to be a slow burn? You reveal bit by bit. I talk about adding up to 10 by little details, 1 and 1 and 2 and 1, 1 and 1 and 3 and 1 and 10. You don't just want to shout horror that doesn't scare anybody. Having a cat jump in the window doesn't scare anybody, right? You have to earn it. You have to get feeling. It has to have layers. So you want to add up to those things so that when you get to that climax, whether the climax is 3/4 or 9/10 of the way through, that we all climax together, that we all have this emotional reaction together, and we all go, holy shit. You want everybody to get there and figure it out at the same time. It's tricky on how to do that, because some people are going to figure it out on the first page. Some people are never going to get it. But I think it's a balance between what you show and what you don't show, and then getting to an ending that feels that you can still surprise somebody, but it feels inevitable. It feels like once you get there, that's what it was always going to be, but you were still surprised a little bit by what happened, which is a really tricky way, a really hard way to balance it. Think about your favorite movies, think about your favorite books, your favorite stories, and what happened at the end and how satisfying it was. And I'm pretty sure it does something similar to that.
Yeah. Clay.
Yeah, I was going to chime in. Like, if you're looking for a specific work that does it, it's right there. The Only Good Indians.
Yes.
That's one of the best opening chapters of any book I've ever read because it has an entire arc. Like the opening chapter, it starts with a great hook, which is like Indian man killed outside bar. And then it goes through the whole story of how that happened. And then it says it again, like a chorus, Indian man killed outside a bar. That's one way to say it, which is so fucking Stephen Graham Jones, like that line. That's one way to say it, you know? But that hook is so captivating. It encapsulates the theme of the entire book. And it also like sets up the framing for how the story is going to be told, which is we are going to follow the complete arc of each POV as they get murdered. And it starts you right there. And I think that was a great example of how to do that, like how to introduce not only the thematic elements, the motifs of your story, but also like, just like how the story is going to be contextualized and framed. And it was just really awesome.
Yeah, I'm a huge Stephen Graham Jones fan, as you know, Clay. And he's been kind of an informal mentor to me over my career. I will say of his books, one I like even a little bit better is All the Beautiful Sinners. That is one of the most powerful opening scenes to a book I've ever read. And I go back and look at it all the time. That prologue, that setup is chilling. It's weird. It's intense. And it kicks off this kind of No Country for Old Men meets Silence of the Lambs, the Native American slant. It's just brilliant. It's one of his more challenging, serious, complex reads. So if you're coming into Stephen Graham Jones' work, that might not be where I'd start. But if you are a fan of his stuff, it's my favorite of his, 10 out of 10. I love it. And I think it's actually coming back into print. It used to be you had to find, there you go. There you go. That's my man. Good job. Have you dipped into it yet?
No, I haven't. I'm too busy reading Perdido Street Station.
Oh, yeah, that'll do it too.
800 pages.
Yeah, sorry about that.
I love
It's
Richard.
great.
Love Richard that you mentioned Silence of the Lambs because I think you should have maybe helped their marketing team out for Longlegs a little bit because it kept being marketed as like, oh, the new Silence of the Lambs. And I think you made a better comparison when you were talking about it in your opening statements of it's more like 7, I think. It has more of a Fincher feel, 100%.
Yeah. Fincher, I would have said Fincher was probably one of my favorite directors, if not my favorite. And then I looked at Denis Villeneuve's work, and I was like, I think I love all of his stuff. Holy shit! Arrival. Every time I watch Arrival, I cry at the end of that movie. That's a brilliant movie. So, and that's based on a Ted Chiang story too. If you haven't read his stuff, he's amazing. Brilliant writer.
You would like Arrival. I wish that he would have directed Annihilation too.
Oh,
That might have made it better because I feel like Arrival had the vibe that Annihilation needed.
yeah. I haven't watched the Annihilation movie, but it sounds like maybe I should skip it.
It's worth watching.
Read the trilogy first.
Read the book.
Read the book.
Always
first.
read the book. Come on.
Yeah. So I'm real quick because I know we're probably running out of time. But do you guys like to watch the movie and then read the book, or read the book and then watch the movie?
Book then movie if possible. Yeah.
When I was like, sorry, you go, Jeremy. I'll come.
Well,
back.
I have mixed feelings about this because basically always with one glaring exception, like the movie or the books are always better than the movie. So like
Typically, I think.
Yeah, almost always. I only have one exception to that, which is The Lord of the Rings.
I was going to say
And
Fight Club.
Travis
I
knows
will.
that
I will fight you.
we will calm down. David,
I agree with you, Jeremy.
Not
Thank you.
even close.
Look, The Lord of the Rings could
Nope.
only be less readable if it was at the bottom of a well.
We have a whole
And we can just
episode.
move on.
We have a
and
whole
that's great.
episode in January, Jeremy.
I know.
Exactly.
I'm
I
bringing
get on
an
that rabbit hole.
essay. I'm
Yeah.
bringing an essay.
But anyway, to the actual point is like, I don't know. It seems like a great progression in quality to watch the movie and then read the book. But then
Yeah.
then
Okay.
again, you know,
I
if the
suppose.
movie sucks, then I'm not going to read the book anyway. So
It's tricky. My take on it is I like to watch the movie and then read the book, but a movie can really skew how you see things because it will give you so many visuals that when you go to read the book, it's already predetermined what you're going to see. Yeah. So I can understand wanting to read the book and then go see the movie, but I will agree most of the time the book is better. My exception was going to be Fight Club, where I have them both really close.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. And that's a fair point, Richard. And Jeremy, actually, like, can it also sometimes reading the book first can ruin the movie for you when it might have been a perfectly good movie otherwise? You know, like, for example, I watched Annihilation before I read the book and I enjoyed it fine. I thought it was good. You know, I didn't have any problem with it. And then when I read the book, I realized, oh, this is like, they're not even scratching the surface of Annihilation in the movie.
I was so angry.
But I didn't care, right? So you were angry. Yeah. I didn't care because I enjoyed it. And like our mom, she's enjoying the Wheel of Time show somehow. Yeah. But we are all like, Wheel of Time. Like, I don't care if you've read the books. I don't know how you can enjoy that show. Yeah. Just it's a trash fire. But anyway, she doesn't care about it. It's not bothering her, but all of us, we had P. Jelly Clark on to debate the Wheel of Time, and he called us book cloaks. And I was like, yeah, we are kind of book cloaks for Wheel of Time, but like the show is just a trash fire.
It's terrible. Yeah. I think I actually used to be, when I was like a teenager, I couldn't do the reverse order. If I watched a movie, I couldn't keep the attention span knowing how it ended. Even if the end is different, I just couldn't. I've actually never read Harry Potter 5 for that exact reason.
That's okay. Harry Potter 5 is just an absolute slog of a book.
Yeah, it is.
Well, you're better to skip it.
I made it like 5 chapters in, and then the movie released, and Mom and Dad were going to go to it, and I was like, I don't want to be left out, so I went, and then I couldn't finish the book, so I got to go. But now I can, and I would say my preferred order is still book, then movie, but that's because I'm not that critical of. I have a pretty open mind with adaptation, like, because I think it's a completely different medium, and I think as long as you preserve the heart of the story and don't change any fundamental endings, I'm okay if you take a few little diversions in how you get there. It's like Wheel of Time, where it's like, no, you have literally butchered several characters' character. That's where I get like a little upset, and that's why I've become one of the most, like, I'm in a very Catholic community, and they have a lot of strong feelings about Lord of the Rings, and I've become one of the biggest defenders of Peter Jackson's vision, because I'm like, listen, the guy got it. He figured out the heart of the story. He took he diverted a little bit
on there, but
he did well, and I get a lot of like pushback of like, no, it wasn't perfect, and I'm like, oh, shut up.
You're right about the mindset there, Travis. I think if you go into it thinking the movie is inspired by or paying homage to or is a reflection of it, not a one by one, shot by shot. And I should have listened to Jeff Vandermeer, because he was saying on social media, like, don't go into it expecting it to be, because it was Annihilation and then a little bit of the other 2 books in the trilogy, and it kind of squashed them together, and like, I get it. And there were some cool moments, but man, I love the book so much, and it really changed my writing a lot. It was a big influence on my writing, the whole new weird movement, that the movie just was so less than the book, which I thought was brilliant. I was disappointed and angry, but as a movie, I think it's fine. It's not bad, you know, but just I was disappointed because I really wanted the book.
It's been really fun. My wife is the complete opposite of me. She's a purist. Like, everything has to be the same. And so like watching adaptations with her is just so fun, because I'm like, this is great. And she's like, no, they didn't have like this line of dialogue this time. And I'm like, Chloe, it doesn't have to be there.
The movie would be 20 hours long if the entire book was in there.
Well, I think in some ways that's why maybe why Game of Thrones worked for as long as it did, was you had to take the time with it. You had to have like 8 seasons or whatever it was.
I haven't yet shown her.
They needed to have 15 seasons.
They
Yeah.
did.
Thank you
but
very
they
much.
had-
They absolutely botched Game of Thrones at the end.
Yeah.
I agree.
But I'm with you. Like seasons 1 through 5, that was the greatest show of all time,
Yeah.
in my opinion.
Yeah.
And Lord of the Rings paved the way for that.
Yeah.
You know, like
Yeah.
that's a faithful adaptation, taking enough stuff directly from the book, but also like cutting what you need to cut. Making those big hard decisions, killing the darlings. Like there's plenty of darlings were killed in the making of that film.
Yep.
But it was worth it, you know.
Yep.
And I still think like that Lord of the Rings trilogy is one of the greatest trilogies of all time, regardless of how I feel about the books.
If not the, honestly.
It's but like I understand people have.
I can't think of a succession of 3 movies that has done better. Godfather was
I was gonna say Godfather gets close, but they kind of
it's close, but they botched the ending. Like Godfather.
Yeah. You're right. Alien, maybe the first 2 are pretty great, but yeah.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
3 is weird. 3 is weird. It's fun, but it's
Nobody
weird.
nails all 3. I think you're right. I think you might have the
Yeah,
meme.
3 is the magic number that kills most franchises.
Yeah.
Well, I know we've gotten a long way from Longlegs, and I know Richard, you have.
Well,
I would talk with you all night, but definitely don't want to keep you too long. So we gotta leap into our crazy chaotic rating system here.
All right.
For the movie Longlegs, which is
Mm.
how many drinks
or drugs or whatever.
Or drugs or whatever would it take
sips of tea.
for
I
you
don't
to
know.
enjoy Longlegs to its fullest? So what?
Ooh. Oh,
It's
okay.
it's chaotic. It means nothing.
Yeah,
What would it take for you to enjoy Longlegs to its
To its fullest, yeah. I think a couple would be nice. I think going in total straight or going in totally hammered, I'm closer to. I think three stiff drinks would get you where you need to go. 3 nice
like
hits.
Manhattans. 3
Yeah.
Manhattans.
A little warm, a little fuzzy, right? You know, I think this is a movie. I talk about stories. Some short stories, I have this whole freight tag thing, the whole structure about all the inciting incidents and the hook and the tension, the conflict, and all that stuff. But some movies and some books and some stories are just vibe. It's an experience. It's an emotion. It's a feeling. You want to be immersed in it. And this, while I like the substance, I think the feeling, the reaction, the way the movie kind of envelops you, the bits of Longlegs that we don't see in the beginning and the way we skirt it for a long time, just a little soft and fuzzy around the edges, I think will make you that much more susceptible to the horror and to the kind of the subtleties of, you know, one of my personal fears is things like on the periphery. And so I think the things you see and think you don't see, the subtlety of the horror will just make it that much more intense. So I'm going to say 3 of your favorite strong whatevers.
Love it. Jeremy.
Oh, me. Well, you know, there is certainly a balance that needs to be struck. I feel like I agree mostly with the 3 sippable thinking man's beverages or thinking person's beverages.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah. Hey, thank you. Basically, have a sip every time that you're surprised that, oh boy, this is Ghost Rider 2, The Spirit of Vengeance's Nicolas Cage in what is a clearly subtle and thoughtful movie. So every time that thought pops into your head, have a nice little sip. You'll probably end up anywhere between 3 to 5, depending on how tall your glass is.
Yeah, exactly.
And how deep your sip.
Yeah.
How big your sip. Clayton.
Yeah, I like the 3. And I have experimented with this a little bit. I actually tried it out. I haven't done this for any movie ever before, but I watched this one 2 times at my house to prepare for this. And I tried watching it completely sober, and then I tried watching it while I drank basically the whole time. And I think I housed about 7 beers through the movie while I was doing that. Yeah. I was also alone and had the house to myself, hanging with my cat. So I was like, I'm just going to keep I'm just gonna keep it
going.
flowing. Yep, it was good. It was good.
Yeah, sometimes you just gotta get drunk with your cat.
7 was too many. You don't want to end up at the end of Longlegs 7 beers deep. It's not really a great feeling. When they go to carve that cake, I was like, ooh, I don't feel great. So I would say 3 to 4 of your favorite drinks is probably a good way to go, because a little bit of that warm and fuzzy, a little bit of inebriation to get fully engrossed in the vibe, I think is beneficial.
Yeah.
But if you go too far, you're going to start thinking about stuff, and it's not the most pleasant experience, I will say.
You don't want your mind to wander.
No, it's wandering in the wrong direction by the end of Longlegs.
Yeah. I think I'm with y'all 3 to 4, but I want to put the caveat of, I think what I'm doing, my routine for every movie, I'm pouring either a nice beer or a glass of whiskey, getting my bag of popcorn, and then I'm sitting down and I'm fully expecting to just sip maybe 1 to 2 through this. And then as soon as Nick Cage like ducks down and is like, like, I have long legs, that I'm down in the first one and I'm I'm like, okay,
Yeah, you'll want that.
I'm strapped in, and then I'm gonna just coddle that second and third and just like sip as I'm kind of shivering and freaked out a little bit. But yeah, that first shock, I'm like, okay, we're here. We are.
That's a great moment in the film. Yeah, I love that.
I will say too, if you are a weed user, as I am, go ahead and just take a good solid hit of some high potency THC, and try to do that little psychic test with Micah. It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun.
Ouch.
What do you see? What words come to your mind? Mute the and just like try it out for yourself. It's kind of fun. I took a page out of Richard's book when we read for class, when we read the first book. Bird Box. Richard challenged us to put a blindfold on and just try to walk to our mailbox, which was a great exercise, because holy shit, that's terrifying. Like trying to think of what people went through in that Bird Box book. It's pretty incredible. Like, I encourage you guys, just try it. Like something really simple, like walk to your mailbox, walk to the end of your sidewalk, blindfolded. It was a cool exercise. It brought a lot of perspective to that story. But doing that psychology test was kind of similar. I was like, this is a really weird, just to think of like the first word that comes to your head when you watch these images, especially if you're a little high.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
One caveat though, I did say have a friend watch you, because I don't want to hear about Travis you walking into traffic and getting hit by the mailman or something. So depending on how far your mailbox is, have a friend watch you so you don't end up killing yourself. Okay.
I think rather I might just make this a classroom activity to break up the day for my class.
There you go.
Just have my students do it, and I'll
Have your
watch
students
them.
do it.
I'll watch
yeah.
them.
Yeah, it's like next level trust fall sort of situation. You'll want that.
I'll be like, all right, you group of teenagers, I want you to go get your books from your lockers with a blindfold, and I got you. Let's see how you do.
Yeah, everybody just close your eyes and take a crack at this staircase. You're going to do great.
Broken noses everywhere.
Well, Richard, we really appreciate you coming on. This has been an awesome conversation. Longlegs, great movie. Neon hit a homer, in my opinion, and we got a couple other, seems like mostly positive things. Richard, where can people find you if they want to read your books? They want to go follow you on any socials. Where are you at?
Take your classes.
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you, Clay. Yes, thank you. It's been a real pleasure. You guys are very educated. You know your stuff, and you have a lot to say. I appreciate that. Really enjoyed our conversation tonight. Very cool. My website's whatdoesnotkillme.com. It's from a Nietzsche quote. What does not kill me makes me stronger. Kind of, I was a big Nietzsche fan in college. Battle not with monsters, lest ye become a monster. For when we stare into the abyss stares back into us, right? So that's my website. I also have I teach online. My class is Storyville online. And then you can find me across any social media platform at Richard G. Thomas 3. So that's Facebook, Instagram, Twitter still. I don't know why. Probably because I have 20,000 followers and I can't quit it. I should probably get off there. Threads, Blue Sky, all that kind of stuff, wherever you hang. I'm easy to find. And if I can help you with your writing careers in any way, shape, or form, please reach out. I'm happy to do that, whether it's taking a class with me or talking about MFA programs or like talking about a great anthology to read or whatever you got going on. I'm happy to help. I know there were a lot of people who helped me out when I was coming up and hold open doors and windows and, you know, help me to get over my fears and insecurities. So if I can help you, I'd be happy to do it.
A lot of people say that kind of
Oh,
stuff.
yeah.
Richard actually does it, I will say. And take his classes. They're awesome.
Thanks,
Just
Clay.
want to recommend.
Clay's an amazing writer. If you guys aren't reading this stuff, you should check it out. It's really good. Really good stuff.
You really should. I give your books to everybody, and I always say, you know, I think he's awesome. I'm biased though. Although really I'm not. I'm kind of lying about that. Like you and I both, if we hated each other's stuff, we'd tell each other.
Yeah.
I've told you that.
You've literally told me that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
my brother just says, you're really weird, man. and then my mom, I just say, like, please don't read this. I remember in one of the intros to one of my books, I was thanking my mom for her support, and I said, now please put the book down and stop reading. I mean it. Please stop reading. It was one of my more, you know, violent, weird books. I'm like, please, mom, stop reading.
Was that Breaker?
Yeah.
Yeah. This is where your enjoyment stops, Mom.
Yeah, please, mom.
All right. Well, thank you all for joining us, and thank you, Richard, once again. We really appreciate you. Go read his stuff, go take his classes, and support him in whatever way.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. Good time.
Yeah.
As always, I've been Travis Vermolem.
I've been Clay from Mom.
I've been Jeremy just this whole time.
Bye.
Richard Thomas.
And we'll continue to be those people. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Guys.
Yes, bye, everyone.
All right.
Cool.
Cool.
Thank you, Richard.
Awesome. Hey, thanks, guys. That was a blast.
Glad.
I'm glad you had